Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Abad to our lecturer, Mr. Ahmad Shah. Today our group will be presenting about liberalism theory. For the introduction, the word liberal is derived from a Latin word, liber, which means free. There are many views on the word liberal from the scholars, philosophers, and so on, depending on their understanding on this theory. But generally, liberal is about freedom, tolerance, responsibility, opportunity, social justice, and equality. John Locke was often regarded as the founder of liberalism, where in his book, The Two Treatises of Government, 1690, he wrote about the right of each man to life, property, and liberty, and the government must not interfere with all these rights. Liberalism sought to replace the norms of hereditary privilege, state religion, absolute monarchy, the divine right of kings, and the traditional conservatism with representative democracy and the rule of law. Liberal also ended mercantilist policies, royal monopolies, and other barriers to trade, instead promoting free trade and free market.
Assalamualaikum. I will explain about the strengths and weaknesses of liberalism. The first strength of liberalism is the viewpoint of liberalism itself, as it is categorized an optimistic view because it believes that citizens from many nations will work together to achieve a meaningful cooperation. The example that can be provided is Arab League, the international organization that resolve foreign issues such as Syria civil war. Next is the optimistic belief lead to the openness between states, as they believe that every people in different background, races, and country could stay together to gain a mutual interest. This openness could create a benefit of economic growth. This could be referred to the country like China that implement the terms of openness for the country. Lastly, liberalism believes that by reducing chaos in nation, they will be able to maintain peace and harmony within the state. All in all, liberalism will go back to its belief, which is the cooperation, coordination, and diplomacy. Based on the diplomacy that liberalism implement, it resolved the Libyan civil war, and now Libya become a developed country and remain peace and harmony. Next, I'll explain about the weaknesses of liberalism. The first one will be dependency on government. As we know, the strength of liberalism is the government involvement itself. But however, the drawback of this is citizens might put high expectations on the government to excel in performing their tasks as the representative for the citizens. My last point of this presentation on the part of weaknesses is liberalism can be a downfall of the state itself. We are aware about the continuous war that happened from the face of the earth in handling typical issue. Some may see as the strength of liberalism itself, but however, trusting human in everything because of their belief could change the roles of actor from international stage to the multinational corporation. Thus, the barriers between states begin to crumble. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is IBRAHIM and I will be explaining on the classical liberalism. People thought liberalism is an ideology that fights for unlimited freedom, but actually liberalism presides on the freedom of an individual from state power and the government. Even though free from state power, people still live in a society. It's like the protection of civil liberties under the rule of law. Classical liberalism developed in the late 18th and early 19th centuries at the West Point to the social, economic and political changes brought on by the Industrial Revolution and urbanization in Europe and the US. On economy, classical liberals advocate a level of economic freedom and that leaves individuals free to invent and produce new products and processes, create and maintain wealth and trade freely with others. To classical liberal, the essential goal of the government is to facilitate an economy in which any person is allowed to the greatest possible chance to achieve in their life. Robert Peel, a Prime Minister from Conservative Party in 1841, has banned the Corn Laws, as the Corn Laws actually enhance the profit and political powers associated with land ownership. This action made him opposed by his own party. As for the politics of classical liberalism diverged drastically from older political system that placed rule over the people in the hands of church, monarchs, and totalitarian government. In this manner, the politics of classical liberalism values on the freedom of individual over that of a central government official. Classical liberals actually rejected the idea of direct democracy, the government shaped solely by a majority vote of citizens, because majority might not always respect personal property rights or economic freedom. As for the social, the classical liberalism actually embraces a society in which the course of events is determined by the decision of individual rather than the action of autonomous aristocratically controlled government structure. However, people started to see that this ideology has brought to income gap, poverty and pollution due to the free market economy. Modern liberalism appeared at this point. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is FARAH ASRI and I will be presenting on the scholars that involve in modern liberalism. So modern liberalism believes to start evolving in the early 19th century, which stood for social liberty and equality before law for the developing middle class citizens. So the fundamental principles of classical liberalism are accepted by modern liberalism as well. They are individualism, rationality, the rule of law, constitutional government, and popular sovereignty are all values they hold dear. The modern liberals decided that the government should intervene as little as possible in people's moral, religious, and intellectual lives. So the first scholar that we have identified is Thomas Hillgreen, an English philosopher who was concerned about the negative aspects of laissez-faire undermining democracy. He did challenge the need for the economic liberties of laissez-faire capitalism, since during the 19th century, it had become clear that free market, contrary to Adam Smith's belief, was not self-regulating and the competition was not flawless. It led to large enterprises destroyed the early 19th century small competitive businesses. There were recurring economic depressions that mostly impacted the poor and middle class people. In short, a laissez-faire culture has several drawbacks. The second scholar that we have identified is a French thinker who is Emile Durkheim, stressed the role of the state in creating social structures conducive to freedom. Classical liberalism was labeled as negative liberalism because it aimed to free individual human beings from the tyranny or oppressiveness of absolute monarchs, colloquial economics, and economic faith. Modern liberals of the 20th century in the United States, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, and Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President, they were emphasizing positive liberalism. They declared that guaranteeing people's freedom of expression is worthless if they cannot feed their families or get a proper education. They asked for wage and hour laws, the right to form unions, unemployment and health insurance, and improve educational opportunity from all through the government. So to do this, they were placing a heavier taxes on the rich people rather than the working class people. So in the United Kingdom, we have identified two scholars who are John Maynard Keynes and Sir William Beveridge, who were liberal economists of the welfare state in Britain. So Keynes advocated for increased government expenditures and lower taxes to stimulate demand and pull the global economy out of depression. As for the Verage report, it aims to provide a comprehensive system of social insurance from cradle to grave. It proposed that all working people should pay a weekly contribution to the state. So in return, the benefits would pay to the unemployed, the sick, the retired, and the widowed. So all in all, modern liberals' contribution since the early 19th century has shaped the economy and liberty that we are still practicing till today. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good day. I bid to Mr. Ahmad Shah. My name is NUR'ASMIRAH binti SAHAD. So without wasting any time, next I will explain further on the suggestion whether the liberalism should be continued or not. Based on our observation, liberalism theory should be continued. This is because, first and foremost, liberalism promotes democracy, whereby from the definition of liberalism itself illustrates the terms of democracy, whereby the countries were given a freedom and a fair election. Through that, the abuse of power from the government or the political system can be prevented. Hence, it will eventually emphasize the well-being of an individual or the citizen in that state. Secondly, liberalism should be continued as it enhances the international cooperation. This is because liberalism believes that power should be measured or accumulated through the state economies, political freedoms and rights, as well as the prospects for peace and cooperation. Those diplomats who practice liberalism in representing the state will actually offering a peace through a free trade and market capitalism. Hence, it can assist in eliminating global conflict and instead tries to enhance a cooperation with other states.
Hi, Assalamualaikum everyone. Now we will move to the next suggestion.
Thirdly, the suggestion that should be implemented is international law. Those who follow liberal political theory believe the role of international law to be one of the moderation. International law differs from state or national legal system in that it is predominantly applicable to countries and their leaders rather than a nation's private citizens. States who have agreed to a treaty and have accepted the authority of the International Court of Justice, which was established by the Charter of the United Nations, are subject to the court's rulings. With proper diplomacy and the right governing institution in place, liberal theories believe that the states can work together to maximize prosperity and minimize conflict, a valuable asset for state actors. For example, member states of the United Nations often work together to ensure all the members adhere to the international laws, in the event that any member state choose not to follow agreed-upon laws. For example, one state violates the territorial coastal water rights of another state, it is up to other member states to act as moderators, establishing or enforcing legal agreements to ensure a proper resolution to the issue. Last but not least, the leverage of the non-governmental diplomats. Liberalism sees the implementation of international organizations and non-governmental bodies as to help to shape the state preference, such as the globalizations and public policy. In liberal theories of international politics, it is a multi-state political formations and non-governmental force influence to the foreign policy as a means of increasing international cooperation. This was first seen in the post-World War II as liberals turned to international institutions and diplomats to carry out a number of functions the states could not perform in the wake of the war, such as protecting human rights. Amnesty International serves people across borders and reminds authorities to respect and support human rights. Another example would be the UN, which is the United Nations, which currently strives to establish global peace by fostering a broader sense of international cooperation with respect to distinct political, social, economic, and militaristic perspectives. Those seeking a career in diplomacy and international affairs benefit from understanding on how the non-governmental actors like the United Nations help broker peace and agreements between warring states and set the stage for international law or coalitions. That's all from us for the suggestion, and we will move to the next presenter. Thank you.
In conclusion, liberalism should be continued as it will help us to live freely, equally, tolerate with each other, and so on by replacing the hereditary privilege, absolute monarchy, and eliminate the oppressions against the people.